Sardo, I need you to roll initiative. Right now.
Nat
Come on.
one.
Now.
This.
Fine, I'm rolling it for you.
I don't have my dice right now. I didn't know I need to be
You
rolling.
got an 18. Congratulations.
Oh, good. Oh,
I don't know
well,
what your bonuses are, but you rolled pretty high. Okay, hold on. I need to roll
good.
for the enemy. You're going first.
Who's the enemy?
This podcast. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Skeleton Crew podcast.
Hi, everybody.
I actually that noise that you heard was an actual metal die that I have. It's
Nice.
It's my couples D20, which I rolled.
Oh,
in
cool.
Yeah. I'm Stross, that's Sardo, and this opening bit is actually relevant for once. A rare time where we have a relevant cold open until we eventually get a theme song.
I'm going to talk about the game that completely altered my life and
Several
remolded my brain like clay.
Honestly, I was almost had wanted to ask how much sleep have you lost because of today's subject matter, and the answer would probably be too much.
So many.
Yeah, across the board. But yes, folks, today we are talking about potential Game of the Year award winner, and not the Bonies. That's our awards. That is
Yeah.
coming. And yes, I'm officially naming them the Bonies.
I accept that.
It was that or the Boner Awards, and I felt this was the better option.
The boners are for our negative opinions of media.
No, that's for our sexy opinions of media, and only the sexy ones.
But yeah, we're talking about Baldur's Gate 3 today. You might have heard of it. I don't know. Little known game. Hasn't gotten much traction.
Yeah, that's only happens when we're talking about stuff like Hey K Story. Okay? Only when we talk about things that we know didn't get popular. Let's not lie here. This was one of the games of a very stacked year. But today, yes, we are talking about Baldur's Gate 3, aka Bald Gate.
Baldgate. Baldgate.
Bald. Just one of my favorite bits from that one's the SpongeBob movie.
Yes.
Yeah, because I remember because King Neptune appears in an episode where he's like a big muscular dude who goes ah.
Yes.
But that's not what he is in the movie, which is fine.
So, Stross, give us kind of the condensed version of what Baldur's Gate 3 is and is about. Like the very Cliff Notes version.
Okay, so the Cliff Notes version of Baldur's Gate 3 of what it is. Baldur's Gate 3 is a CRPG released this year in early August. It is the sequel to BioWare's duology of Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, which came out in like the late 90s and early 2000s.
A bit.
It's been a bit. They are based after the Dungeons and Dragons, of which they have several of, at least the dragon variety in this time around.
There's definitely there's also some dungeons there. So it fulfills on its promise. It's set in that universe.
Yeah, it is
there's...
set in specifically Forgotten Realms, we should mention.
Mm-hmm.
For those who don't know what that means, congratulations, you're not a giant enough dork.
There's a tremendous amount of lore behind the universe, but the good news is, for new people to this, you don't really have to know any of that.
No. Much like playing actual D&D, your level of actual knowledge of Dungeons and Dragons lore, it can be minimal. The game will explain a lot of stuff. And also not explain some stuff, because, well, the criticism section is going to be interesting.
Yes.
Point is, it is a video game based on Dungeons and Dragons. It takes place on the Sword Coast, around and within the city of Baldur's Gate.
Hence the name.
And you play as, well, we'll get there. It was released to critical acclaim and massive praise by peoples in early August, and it is now in the running for potentially Game of the Year.
People have lost their minds over this thing with good reason.
This is one of the two games people have lost their minds over. The other one was Tears of the Kingdom, but that was more for the programming side of thing. That did you ever see that one of my new favorite genres of tweets,
Which kind?
which were game programmers reacting to Tears of the Kingdom physics and being like,
Oh, yeah.
going, "Excuse me."
Yes.
That
Yeah.
that was great, by the way. If there was one thing great about the most recent Zelda game, it was definitely seeing all these professionals being like, "What sort of wizardry is this?"
So the basic premise of Baldur's Gate 3. I'm going to keep this extremely short. The thing is, you wake up in a mind flayer pod, and you might have seen mind flayers. They're these people that have basically squid heads. Mind flayers have kidnapped you, and they've put a parasite in your skull.
Oh,
And
tadpole.
the parasite, yes, the parasite gives you the ability to telepathically communicate with people who also have the parasite, and
It turns you into a
you
mind flayer. That's what it
yes, it
does.
turns you into a mind flayer after several days, except you're built different, apparently, for some reason. So you break out of the ship after finding some other people in a similar situation to you. Your ship crash lands, and you survive the wreckage. You find survivors, and your goal is to get this worm out of your skull, or don't. More on that later.
Yeah. So
But
basically,
that's
the inciting incident is you are either one of several pre-made characters or your own original character. You are in a pod. You wake up in a pod on what is known as a nautiloid, which is the ships that mind flayers fly around in space in.
they're big squiddly ships.
Yep, very squiddy all around, and you go across this very large, sprawling adventure of trying to figure out what the hell's going on, get rid of the tadpole, or don't. Maybe you want to become a mind flayer. That some people wanna.
It's very well summed up by, and I ask myself, how did I get here?
Yeah. And that's basically what the story starts off as. We'll go more into details later, but Sardo, I have a question for you. Because you and I played this game, but not on the same platform.
No, we didn't.
Was you played the PS5 version, and I played the
I
PC version.
I like to joke that I don't call my PS5 a PS5, it's my Baldur's Gate machine because that's all I have played on it so far.
For now. It's now.
For now.
I'm going to be forcing Sardo to play other things with me on that on
Yes.
stream. But for now, how would you say a game that was clearly designed with the PC's functionality of a keyboard and mouse as its primary way of doing things, how would you say it played on PlayStation
I
with a
think it
gamepad?
handled fine. Um I think it handled fine. The gamepad worked well. There was some stuff I had to kind of learn. Uh, I think my biggest gripes were my biggest actual gripe with the game was camera control. It got
Uh,
to be kind of a kick in the dick sometimes. Didn't always handle the best. That was probably the worst
yeah,
translated thing.
that's sort of. I've only played one other sort of classic styled CRPG of this variety on a play on like a home console. That
Hmm.
was Pillars of Eternity 1. And I would be the first to agree that, like, well, it actually worked pretty well. You definitely feel like there's some jank to it. Like,
There's a small amount of jank.
but it's like the type of jank you can only get when you're trying to fit, like, a square peg into a round hole.
And really, it didn't impact my enjoyment of combat or anything that much, so that's not a problem. My other gripe, which has honestly nothing to do with anything, is I wish I could do mods, but that's fine. I didn't. I'm not a big PC game person. I've never really enjoyed playing games on the computer. So it's like, I'm probably going to use the PS5 for other stuff anyway,
Yeah.
so I'd rather
Well,
do
yeah,
that than
no, there's
upgrade to it.
definitely. I get that also, like, getting a computer that can run a game of Baldur's Gate 3's size is also kind
Th-
of pricey.
This is a thick game.
Yeah, okay, so we need to mention that, like, we're starting with these small technical gripe things because they're kind of boring to talk about for
Hmm.
us. But they do bear mentioning. This game is big, and by big I mean file size big. When it dropped, it was 120 gigs, which is a
And
lot.
but it makes sense also because this is a
Oh,
densely loaded,
this
multi-layered. Like
isn't this isn't a
there's a
case
lot of
where I agree with you. This isn't a case where it's like one of those games where they just where you ask why is this 100 gigs. This is one of those games where it's like I know why it's 100 gigs.
there's a lot of shit going on.
Yeah,
And I guess if we're getting other like never mind. We'll save that for
yeah. We got a
later.
whole
But
bunch
yeah,
of stuff
I
to
think
talk about, but it bears like if there's one problem with you buy it, it does mean you have to like I had like way more games on my desktop and I saw all the icons having to disappear over time to
yeah, it's a
accommodate.
big game.
It's big. Just know that going in. And if you're getting it on anything, it's going to be big. It's going to take up a lot of
Right.
space. Be ready. Luckily, this game does, in my opinion,
Hmm.
feel like it's actually 100 gigs plus gigs worth of stuff in there.
Yeah,
Because,
she's soup that eats like a meal.
oh yeah, this is a full on like stew.
Yeah,
There are. This isn't just a gravy and some chicken. There's also some potatoes in there, and a carrot too. Maybe even some
but
onions.
yeah. So I guess when we're talking about kind of your initial things, let's talk about the characters, and let's start
Well,
with
I
your
think I have a
original
better way of
character
doing
of
this.
choice.
We're gonna
Uh,
start with the fact that this game lets you pick or create your own character. So let's start first things first with the origin characters, but
yeah,
in the
that's what I
way
was.
that the game lets you do it,
Okay.
which is you move over and you click one and they introduce themselves for you, which is interesting.
Hmm.
So now begins one of what I'm like to call Stross is about to compare this game to Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous a bunch of times. I'm sorry now.
Okay.
And that is when you got I'm not sure if you remember this, when you did like the pre-generated characters for Wrath of the Righteous, they were just there.
Yeah.
Here, you click on them and there's a little trailer.
Yeah.
Each
You
and
get
everyone.
yeah.
So I believe the first one on the list is a certain Gale of Waterdeep. Would you like to
Ah,
introduce him?
Mr. of Waterdeep. Uh, Gale of Waterdeep. He is a wizard.
Mm-hmm.
He
He has
has
fur.
a spectacular mullet.
I'm not really sure if it's a
I
mullet.
it's a mullet to me. It is some Billy Ray Cyrus achy breaky heart looking
I just
hair.
think it's just the way his hair falls because my hair does the same thing, and I know
Okay,
mine's
well
not a
maybe
mullet.
it's not a mullet. I apologize.
But the point is,
I
he's got some excellent hair, a nice beard, and
He's a very nice looking man.
and what I like because I wanted to do this like how the game does it because unlike just being like up, you're being presented with a pre-generated character, you're being given the chance to play as one of the prospective party members as a character.
Yes.
I wanted to do it this way because you're not just playing Gale of Waterdeep as like a character sheet that you're given. You're playing Gale of Waterdeep and all of his lore that will
Yes.
pop up in game, and he tells you. And I like this. Each character gets their own little like introduction scene which tells you what they're about, and each one is really goofy because they're just kind of standing there being like, I'm Gale of Waterdeep, and this is my bullshit. And Gale is a wizard, and he used to be the favorite of the goddess Mistra.
A little more than a favorite. They were a thing.
By favorite, I mean they were probably doing it. Point is,
No, they were definitely no. It's confirmed they were doing it. This man did
I
it with a
I
goddess.
I don't think she does it. I'm I'm not saying
No,
he doesn't. I'm saying she doesn't. I'm accusing her. Jokes
but
aside, he has this thing. a problem that you are introduced to as he has to feed off of what is known as the weave, which is basically the web of magic in the universe.
So you have to feed him magic items, and my favorite way that a character described this is Gale slurps them down like a horse with a carrot.
He's got to eat your boots, man.
He's got to eat boots.
He's got to eat the boots. We're
So,
gonna go more in depth into these characters in a bit. We're just kind of introducing them just so you know who you're dealing with.
but Gale has the reason he has to feed upon the weave is because he has basically a magical nuke stuck in his chest from a previous mishap where he tried to defy Mystra and merge with the weave, essentially.
He did an oops, and this is his punishment.
Yeah, so now Gale could blow himself up, and you can make Gale blow himself up during the game at several points.
Oh, it's a button. It's just a button you can press at any time. And
Yeah.
that will always be extremely funny to me.
It's very funny.
It's like, here's the Gale will explode and kill everyone in a 4-mile radius button. Here's the here's the nuke button.
I love the exploding Gale button, just available to you whenever you want.
It's like, oh, I could just blow everything up right now. You can actually game over. This is one of the many non-standard game overs you can get in this game. Is at any one point when you could just blow up the final boss, you could just do it with this nuke that is stuck inside Gale's chest. At any time.
And there. He'll even say at certain points, it's like, hey, let me do my thing. This is what I need to do. And you can tell him, no, you don't.
More on why that is in a bit, because we got several other characters to introduce to you.
But yeah, that's Mr. of Waterdeep.
That's Mr. of Waterdeep.
He's
Oh, finish, please.
Personality-wise, he's a sweetie pie. He's a little socially awkward. He likes his books. He likes his flying cat, familiar, named Tara. She's great. He's a nice dude. He got a serious upgrade from early access where he was a little more different, but he's a good boy here. I love Gale.
Yeah. Next up is God's favorite princess, if I remember, if it's like when you open it.
Yes.
One Shadowheart, cleric of Shar, who has memory loss issues and a mysterious artifact. Ooh, exciting.
Yes.
More on her later. She's a. We're not going.
She's a moody. She's a moody goth girl.
She's the moody gothy one who worships the evil goddess, but doesn't seem so mean about it. No, this is not the first time this has happened in Baldur's Gate game. More on that later. Next up is, I believe, on the list is, I believe it's Lae'zel, and that's...
I love Lae'zel.
I do too. I just think it's funny that she's next to dear old Shadowheart. Who, there's a thing between them, trust me.
They have issues.
They have their stuff with each other. Lae'zel is one of the more interesting characters in this game, in that she's a Githyanki. There's a reason why I haven't been mentioning playable races yet. That's going to come up later in the criticism section.
And TLDR, they are a race of like greenish-skinned, alien kind of looking people. They got like little snubbed Whoville noses. And they are very militaristic. They have psychic powers, and they will hurt you.
They are
and Lae'zel will hurt you.
And they are the sworn enemy of the Gaith in their tongue, or Mind Flayers, or Lithids, depending on what you want to call them. It's all the same thing.
Yep.
Because they used to be enslaved by them during their grand star-spanning empire. They broke free, destroyed the Grain Design, and are now basically sworn enemies.
Mm-hmm.
Lae'zel is that to a T. She is militant. She is mean. She's kind of nasty.
She She thinks you're stupid and she won't hesitate to tell you to your face.
And if you're into that, well, good job, soldier. You can romance her.
And it's pretty great.
Yeah, it's
I
great.
have romanced Lae'zel, and it's wonderful.
Oh no, it is. Every one of these characters we mentioned are, by the way, romanceable. BT
Yes.
dubs.
Hmm.
Fourth,
Yeah.
I believe, on that list, amusingly, is Astarion. I'll let you take this one. I know you want to.
So, fourth on the list, are we talking about the twink?
Yes, we're talking about Astarion.
Starion. Yeah, you might know this guy. Everybody on the internet has lost their fucking minds over this little freak. Astarion, the pale elf. He is an elf and a vampire. It's pretty obvious he's a vampire, even when he doesn't say it outright.
No, it's
He
funny
is a
because
rogue.
he tells you in his little like character trailer.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a secret.
No, he's very vampire coded, but he reminds me a little bit. His manner of speech reminds me a lot of Tim Curry. He's very like, oh darling, oh my.
He's a vampire, not a high end vampire, just a vampire.
A vampire spawn, and he's the one companion who I think him and Lae'zel are like, if you kick a puppy, Astarion will approve. If you pet the dog, Astarion will disapprove. He's that kind of guy. He's a little bastard. He's crusty. He's dusty. He's great.
I love him too.
Yeah. And
Next
then
on the origin character list is we're part of the defense squad for him. Dear sweet beloved Wyll.
Wyll Ravengard.
Wyll is a warlock, which means he has to deal with a devil. At least in this case, there are other ones you can pick, by the way, but in this case, it's a devil. Which gives him magical powers, so he can go save people as long as he keeps his patron happy.
He has a prosthetic eye. It's actually a sending stone, which I think is a really neat little detail.
And he's one of the few interesting cases of having a black fantasy character. So, fuck off, certain people.
And I think Will's going to take up a large part of the complaint section because not because of his character, because he is one of my favorites, but because of the way he's handled. More on that later. But Wyll is, I'd say, one of the few out and out like cut and dry good aligned companions in the party. He's
fun.
I think he's like the most like stock fantasy hero in terms of like general personality.
To compare it to another piece of D&D media that I know both of us have seen, he's Zank.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
He's the Zank of this game. If you've seen the D&D movie Honor Among Thieves, then you know what I mean. He's the most stock heroic character you're going to get, and that's great.
He's the Blade of Frontiers, and I would die for him.
I would too. Though I wouldn't, because he would be really upset about it.
No, I would live for him.
There you go.
Try to be a better person, and that would
die
make
for him, but he wouldn't let me. But he won't let you.
Yes,
because
he's a hero.
He would be very upset, and I don't want that. And speaking of being upset, if someone were to die, our last origin character, which is the main ones you can pick, that aren't a specific special one and your custom built one, which is what most people did, because of course we did. More on those versions later, but we need to talk about the largest member of the party of origin characters, Karlach.
Or Sweetie Pie Honey Bunch.
Sugar Pie Honey Bunch.
She is a tiefling barbarian. She's huge.
She's big. She's recently escaped from the Hells, or Avernus, and she's here to, well, not go back. But she has an infernal engine as a heart, and it's a bit of a problem.
And it's malfunctioning. It's not going to last long here up here on the surface.
because it's not hot enough for it expels too much heat.
But she is a big burly lady that can punch the shit out of stuff. She smokes cigars, she swears like a sailor, and she is just so sweet and adorable.
And she has the personality of a teddy bear.
She has a teddy bear.
Yeah,
His name is
Clive.
Clive.
Is this a reference to Final Fantasy 16? Probably not, but it is now.
Harlack is a lot of people's favorites for a very good
Well,
reason.
no, she's a very
Because,
specific subsect of people's favorites, and it's very obvious as to why. More on that
well,
later.
yes.
There are more
Yeah.
companions, but those are the origin companions. Those are the ones that you can be the main character of if you want to be,
Yes.
which is exciting. We did
So,
not do that. Neither.
nope.
In fact, most people didn't. Statistically speaking, 80% of all players did what we did, which is make our own Tav. Tav is the name, quote unquote,
Default name for your adventure.
yeah, for your adventurer of your making. You played a
I played a half-elf bard warlock.
named.
His name here was his actual name, Seojun. Uh, you might know him better as Ezra. Ezra the Liar.
And I played Makoto, a very fun little monk lady who went around doing the punchies. And we also, the two of us, created the fantastical Princess She-Lump.
She was great.
She's great. But that's just the important thing. No, I think that is basically introducing all the key players of what I'm going to call the initial party. There are some more companions, and we're going to get into them. But
Hmm.
that's just introducing them. So let's start with Act 1. You get off the tutorial Nautiloid, and you are tasked with a very simple job. Figure out how to even get rid of this thing in your head. You are dropped in this area outside of Baldur's Gate, sort of south of it, I believe.
Deep in the wilderness.
And basically, you start wandering around. You pick up all the party members. Gale's found in a magic hole, because of course he is.
You can choose to give him a high five instead of pulling him out.
Yeah, this is true. Astarion is there.
Just kind of wandering around waiting for people to stab.
Lacelle got caught in a trap. Shadowheart's the one you meet first outside of this, where she's just on the ground, being God's favorite princess.
Hmm.
A gatekeeper and a hater. And, of course, you eventually run into Wyll and Karlach a bit later on, if you're not playing as them. And you are caught in between a battle between a bunch of goblins and a grove of druids.
Grove of Druids and also a bunch of tieflings that are staying at the grove in the meantime. That the druids want them out.
They're free. We don't want them here. We didn't ask for them. And basically, the druids are peaceful, and they don't want to deal with the fact that these goblins are attacking supposedly, because of these tieflings.
Yes. So you get the choice of how you want to deal with the goblins. You can actually side with the goblins and destroy the druid grove, or you can do the thing that I'm pretty sure most people did because it feels really bad to attack the grove.
Most people did not, much like every time I was talking about this the other day with some other people. It is very common when a game gives you the option of being evil or good. Most people pick good for a reason.
Yes.
And most people usually help the grove. You go fight the goblins, etc., etc. And you run into the druid leader. His name's Halsin. More on him in a bit, because he's actually important here.
Mm-hmm.
And you basically take out the goblins' leaders, pretty much slaughter them. which
Yeah,
is
you kill them. It's real fun.
yeah, they're nasty.
Yeah, they're an unpleasant foul bunch. It's very like, stock D&D, like go and kill a bunch of goblins
They eat
because they're
people.
awful.
They eat people. They're stinky.
They're stinky and crass and
But
gross
what you
and
learn
yeah,
is that while there is that you learn about this thing called the Absolute. This weird culty religion about this unseeable being known as the Absolute, who has great control over these goblins because they all got tadpoles in their head of some
just like
variety,
you.
just like you, which is strange. And also, in turn, they are going towards Moonrise Tower. And basically, what you learn is there's more going on here. But before we do that, there's two more characters we need to introduce real quick. Because you're either getting, well, up until patch 5, which came out yesterday, you were either A, siding with the goblins and getting a paladin named Minthara, she's a drow, or the wood elf, Halsin, who's a druid. Would you like to introduce Halsin for the dear listeners?
Everyone wants to climb Mount Halcyon, myself included. He's a big burly elf. He can shapeshift into a bear. He can shapeshift into a lot of things actually, but the bear is his preferred one. He definitely seems like the kind of guy who would go to Burning Man.
Shirtless.
And yes. But he's fun in that he is an elf, but he's big. He's so big.
A rarity in male elf looks, by the
But
way.
he's like a very kind, like kind of like gentle, soft-spoken dude.
And he's yoked.
Yoked. He's so yoked. But
big
yeah,
buff dude.
that's Halson. He's also one of a couple of characters you can be polyamorous with in this. So, yeah.
He's also one, not only a romance companion, but he's one of the two up until patch 5, completely was at one point exclusive. I'm not sure what it is now that patch 5 comes out. We'll talk about that in a bit. Because a lot of stuff was added in patch 5.
Yeah.
But he was exclusive because it was either him or Minthara.
Yes.
And,
because the only way to get Minthara is to help destroy the Grove. So,
or until
not a lot of people want it.
Where I'm not sure how it works because it is literally as of yesterday from recording. You could knock her out in Act 1 and she'd reappear in Act 2.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm not sure exactly how that works, but that's a thing now. And what you learn... Oh, we skipped over a very important thing.
Oh?
We skipped over the Dream Visitor. Your Dream Guardian.
Oh, that's right. Because you get to make a second person when you're creating your character.
And yeah, Dream Guardian.
So this person, as the name implies, appears to you in your dreams and kind of drops some useful but cryptic information about your brain worm and what's going on with that.
And more on that later.
They are not all they appear to be. That's all I'll say. So, yeah, you finish up the Grove, you get Halsin or Minthara, whichever one you choose. And that leads into part 2, which takes place a good chunk of it in the Underdark.
No, actually, no, that's still Act 1.
Oh, that's Act 1, that's right. But the Shadow Cursed Lands, I'm sorry.
The Shadow Cursed Lands is Act 2. There's a lot of stuff in Act 1. We'll talk more in depth a bit. We're just doing the overview.
Act 1 and 2 kind of bleed into each other, I feel like.
I mean, they do. They're very much... You could still go back to places in Act 1, but that's why that probably feels that way. Act 2, you now have to deal with the stuff in Moonrise Tower, where you learn somewhat what's going on, where you end up learning about Ketheric Thorm.
Who is part of something called the Dread Three.
Ooh. And also was the first character I met who was not played by a British person. No, it's just so funny.
It's
It's because I remember when like I was playing the game for the first time, and I got that part, and I got
yeah.
to like there's this one lady, she's Russian sounding. I'm like, okay, still European. And then I ran into J.K. Simmons playing Ketheric Thorm,
hmm
and it's just like there's
And
Americans in this.
J.K. Simmons is like, I'm not gonna fucking do a British accent. And we
You
love
hired
him
me to
for it.
J.K. Simmons my way through this role, and I'm gonna do it.
And he does a wonderful job.
It's just funny because it's so like you go through so much of this game with like everyone being like, "Oi, how are you?" or "Hello, I'm from
Ew.
Canterbury,"
Tea and scones.
and then there's "I'm J.K. Simmons," and it's such a whiplash moment because no one else sounds like that in the entire game. It's just so funny that it's just
But
J.K. Simmons out of the blue like that.
but Ketheric Thorm is a figure who is in the Dread Three. He's an avatar of the god Myrkul, who is the god of death, or one of the gods of
Well,
death.
there are three
So,
death gods in Forgotten Realms.
hmm
One of them is Merkel. The other one is Bane, and one of
well,
them is
no,
Paul.
Bane is like the god of tyranny,
Wait,
but they're like all evil gods.
ooh, they're
It,
spooky.
it, it's it's a whole trifecta thing.
Yeah, it makes sense. Don't worry about it.
But yeah, don't worry too much about it. So Ketheric Thorm is like this. He's one of the bad guys who's kind of like working with the Absolute, and you've got to stop him.
Well, what we learn is that the absolute is the mother brain
hmm
or the nether brain, which is basically the head of all things. Uh, Mind
It's
flayer.
it's the big
It's a
it's the
big
big
brain.
bad here,
It's a large brain, and
and it's pretty fucking metal.
it's pretty metal, and it's being controlled by the Dread Three, uh, who we learn is Orin the Red,
hmm
Enver Gortash, more on him later, and of course Ketheric Thorm, who we just mentioned.
Yes.
So basically, what you learn is that these three are following the orders of the Dead Three, which are their gods, to take over the Sword Coast,
As you do.
and they're using the tadpoles to do it.
And
And
it's become a whole cult and everything. So they're kind of like stretching their evil through. And you have to venture into the shadow cursed lands and deal with Mr. Thorm. And along the way, you meet a cleric of Saloon, the moon goddess. Her name is Isabel.
what you learn is that Shadowheart, being a cleric of Shar, is now it needs to be noted that Shar and Selûne used to be part of the same being.
They were sisters
Yeah.
basically.
And they had a very bad, nasty falling out, and neither side likes the other. That's really all you need to know in this case. It doesn't go well.
So shit happens. One of Ketheric's minions attacks, tries to kidnap Isabel, brings a whole bunch of dudes to this place in the Shadow Cursed lands called Last Light Inn, which is basically the last refuge for some of the folks who are dealing with the Absolute. And
It's a
you have to save
rundown place.
Isabel.
Yeah, you can save her, or you can fail,
Yeah,
which is fun.
it is fun. But you also meet Jahira, and Jahira is somebody from one of the previous Baldur's Gate games.
She
She
is.
has a Russian accent.
She's from both, actually.
hmm And she's a very hot older lady.
Yeah. Well, this is her in her hot older lady years because she's
Yes.
like 200 plus years old. She is a druid. She was at the battle that caused the Shower Curse lands, which was a battle against Ketheric Thorm back in the day when he was a disciple of Shar.
It's very much a how many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man kind of thing.
Yeah. And, yeah, so here she is. And, she's a harper, which is a whole organization. We're not really going to go into that.
Harp are kind of like freelance do-gooders.
They're a network of do-gooders who try to help people do things. That's really all you need to know. And, yeah.
And you're also tasked with finding something called the Night Song. This is related.
This is related to all of this. Hey, you go find the Night Song, you learn that it's an Azamar named Aelin, daughter of Salune.
And also Isabel's girlfriend.
This is important.
She's a very powerful lesbian in a suit of armor, and I love her very much.
This is true. But, yeah. You can find them.
And if you
if you
choose to free her... Sorry, go ahead.
You get a choice. Our beloved Shadowheart gets to have a choice of either kill the Night Song or don't. And this is where you shall take over.
And if you don't kill her, then Aelin is grateful to you. She reunites with her girlfriend, and we also find out that Isabel died at one point and was brought back to life by her father, who was so deep in grief that he basically swore himself to Myrkul in order to bring his daughter back.
Yeah.
And he's very sad about it. That's his thing. He's a very sad man. But Isabel's like, fuck you, Ketheric. And so if you choose to rescue her, she aids you in your battle against him.
And from pretty much here on out, you're friends.
Yes. She hangs out in your camp. It's great.
It's there. And you fight Ketheric, you win. Then you move on to Baldur's Gate, and this is where the game gets, well, this is where the pacing gets all over the place.
It gets a little silly.
Here is basically where everything has to tie itself up, so every loose end is taken care of. You fight the other two members of the Dread 3 of Gortash and Ornn the Red, and eventually you're given the option of, basically, do you take over the Mother Brain or not? There you go. And that's basically what happens in the game in a very, very short version, because we're going to be going into very deep detail very soon.
Yeah, that's all she wrote for the main plot. There's
a lot of nitty-gritties that we're about to go into.
Yeah.
Starting.
So where do we start?
Well, I think a good place to really start is back in Act 1, and that is really where this all begins, and that is we are given the option to join up and help the druids or not. And this is what this is basically the beginning of, are you gonna be an asshole or not?
Yep.
And what happens is you are basically, throughout this game, given various options and various choices. And we're just going to talk about it. I would say Act 1, one of the first things we did, there's a lot of side quests in this game, but we're not going to cover all of them, because some of them are really short or not that or not super interesting.
It's a lot of them aren't like majorly plot relevant, so
they're fun, and we're going to talk about probably the more interesting ones because they're fun.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not going to like go super deep into stuff like the artist that you freed in Act 1.
Yeah, but like
interesting side quest doesn't pay off until Act 3.
Just the important bits for now.
Like, we're going to talk about Auntie Ethel. I feel like we have to talk about Auntie Ethel.
Well, yeah.
But basically, a lot of Act 1 is you trying to, like, figure out what's in your head, trying to get rid of it. Like, you go, Auntie Ethel says she has a cure, you learn she's a hag. And, what's the first rule of dealing with hags, Sardo?
Don't deal with hags.
Don't deal with hags. They are going to rip you off.
And if you choose to take Auntie Ethel up on her offer to help cure your brainworm, she doesn't cure it, but she does give you a permanent stat debuff. Yep. In the form of a really cool-looking eye.
Yeah. And basically a lot of Act 1 is, like, doing stuff and learning about what the absolute might be. You also meet a very important NPC during Act 1, and I feel like you're going to want to talk about dear Raphael.
Yes. So throughout the game, you get to deal with an actual devil.
His name is Raphael.
He sucks. And I mean that affectionately.
He is a devil.
He takes the whole, like, Mephistophelian deal with the devil thing very seriously. He encounters you on the road, and he brings you to this place called the House of Hope, which is basically his personal domain, where he presides over tortured souls. And he keeps trying to make you an offer. It's like, let me make you a deal. Give me your soul and I'll help you out. And you can be like, yeah, I'll give you my soul. Or you can be like, no, fuck off.
What's so funny about Raphael is that he's a Cambion.
Mm-hmm. So he's only a half devil.
He's not even that high up on the food chain. In terms of, like how, like, you get a companion in Wrath of the Righteous who would probably be higher up on the food chain than he is.
Mm-hmm.
Just remember the difference between him and said demon companion. You know who I'm talking about? We'll mention her later.
I do.
And just remember, if he tried to do this shit around her, she would just laugh at him.
Yeah,
she'd be like, you're a Cambion.
He's a very small name, big ego kind of character, and he's really playing on the idea that you don't know what he is exactly, so you'll be more impressed.
I mean,
he also does.
His father is Mephistopheles, so he is actually at least the son of somebody important. He's a Nepo baby.
Good job, Nepo baby. He also does this thing a lot where he'll, like, look directly into the camera while he's talking, and it's really funny.
He's fun.
He's very silly. I enjoy him.
But yeah, that's one of them. And basically, he offers you a deal. You could say no. The one reason why he's important is that if you're doing a lot of stuff with Asterion, he's a very big part of that character quest.
Yes.
Which is kind of frustrating, but that's more in the criticism section.
Yeah.
But a lot of Act 1 is this sort of nicely paced, like, trying to figure out what to do and what you can do, and dealing with the problems presented in front of you. You meet a lot of people. You meet all these different tieflings. Some more important than others.
Mm-hmm.
Like Zevlor.
Also, Roland. Shout out to my friend Azusa, who loves Roland. Roland is great. Does. He's a silly boy.
Roland and his siblings. And Alfira, who's a bard. Damon, who's important to Karlach's character quest.
Mm-hmm.
They used to be basically a group of former Hell Riders.
And now he can make you stuff.
Yeah, he makes you stuff. He actually sells some pretty good stuff.
He does.
But yeah,
you want to keep him alive.
Yeah, you want to keep these people alive if you can. But what you learn, and in Act 2, you run into sort of the cult of Absolute proper, as we mentioned. Act 2 is a bit more focused, in a good way, I would say.
Yeah. It sharpens in.
It sharpens in. You're dealing with... This lets you keep going into things. And then Act 3 is... Oh god, Act 3 is a lot. there's not a lot of new people introduced in Act 2 who will make it out of Act 2. So we're not going to really talk about outside of Dame, Aelin, and Isabel, which I wanted to say I learned something. I'm not sure if you learned this. So when the last light in is attacked,
Hmm.
um poor Isabel got the shit beaten out of her.
Uh,
So every time I saw her, she because I couldn't heal her because she was an NPC. She was constantly like beat to shit for the rest of the game. She's like, it's like, Dame Aelin, can I please, for the love of God, heal your wife?
Please let me heal your wife.
She has bruises on her face.
It's like, you're making me feel bad.
Whole game. And I would say, really, I would say story-wise, this game is good. Nothing
Yes.
particularly, like, groundbreaking, but it's really well executed until Act 3.
I mean, yeah, and as far as the story goes, it's not groundbreaking because it doesn't have to be.
Well, I would say it is a very good D&D plot.
It's, if you were playing this as like a campaign with other people, it would be fun.
Yes, and that's the point. It is a great representation of what a D&D plot should be, which is intriguing, interesting, and then payoff.
Yes.
Where you fight something big at the end, because that's what D&D is about. As people who play D&D, we would be very happy with this as our campaign.
Yes.
And it does its job, and it does it well. We are just avoiding really getting nitty-gritty about the characters, by the way, because it's like, that's not going to stop once we started.
So, Act 3,
We need to talk about
it's...
Act 3. Act 3 is first point of criticism for both of us, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Act 3 is the... I don't want to say it's bad, but it's definitely the worst part of the game, in my opinion.
I feel like it's kind of messy. It like it's still fun, it still plays good, but it seems a little unfocused, a little cacophonous.
Yeah, the best way I could sum it up for those who've not played it, Act 3 is where the game ends. So everything has to go and basically end in some fashion.
Yes.
For better and for worse. Like, I would say, like, as someone who's played Act 3 and beat it, and so have you, obviously, which is why we're talking about it now, because we could probably talk about this anytime in the past 2 months.
Yes.
But we wait until we both finish the game. And Act 3, like, in terms of, like, performance, I don't know about for the PS5 version. You can say this yourself. But this is where I experienced a lot of crashes.
Yes.
A lot of slowdown. Just, like, I had several boss fights crash after I beat it, so I had to do them all over again. Like,
I got some weird bugs, yeah.
Yeah, this is where, like, I don't want to harp too much on Act 3, but it's like, Act 1 is, like, such a great start. You have all this intrigue of, like, okay, I'm trying to survive. I'm trying to, like, figure out what this absolute is. Act 2 is where you learn what it is, and you're like, oh my god, it's the nether brain. That's how the Illithids fit into all of this.
I feel like we could have gotten to the city just an eensy weensy bit earlier, like in halfway through Act 2, and it would have felt less claustrophobic at the end.
Well, like, the problem is, Act 3 is where basically everything has to meet its ending.
Yes.
And I feel like Act 3, despite being really, like, not bad by any stretch of the imagination, you definitely feel like there's, like, either not enough in there or everything has to end so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if there was any part of the game where I started feeling, like, really fatigued from playing it, like, I was starting to get tired of playing the game, it was Act 3.
Yeah.
and I want to make mention that it's not none of this is bad. It's just that like
It's just how it is.
it's just how it is, and it
But
especially once you learn this like most of the cut content was Act 3,
yeah.
and you feel it once you know it. It's like, oh yeah, this is where a bunch of stuff was cut out or wasn't finished yet when the game was released, and it shows.
But yeah, it's where the story ends, and I'll say the one like one of the things I really liked about Act 3 and about
Mhm.
the ending was that I feel like the fight against the Netherbrain felt like sufficiently cool and like on the right grand scale.
Oh yeah,
You get to
definitely.
climb up its fucking brainstem into the sky. It's cool. It's
Oh
so
yeah,
cool.
definitely a like proper final boss. Proper.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong there. The issue I think we're having is that like everything from like the start of Act 3 to the final act of Act 3 is sort of kind of this rush. Feels like you're rushed. You have to go do all these things.
Hmm.
Like you have to finish a lot of people's character quests, and some people's character quests don't end at the same time, or they feel kind of insufficient. We're looking at you, Wyll, and Karlak. Actually, especially you, Karlak. Her character quest
But
kind of just kind of stops,
yeah.
which is a
But I
problem.
feel like if we're in the latter half where we kind of meet the rest of the baddies, so to speak, we should probably talk about them a little bit. Like, let's talk about
Oh,
Orin first
before we
because
do that, we missed somebody, and I'm really mad at myself that we missed him.
uh-huh.
We have to talk about the Stone Lord himself, and
Oh, Minsk.
we have to talk about the other returning party member, Minsk
Minsk and
himself,
Boo.
and Minsk and Boo, another returning character from the original games. He is a friend of Jahira.
Jahira.
He is a ranger. His familiar is
Space hamster.
he's a space hamster, a very large one to boot, named
Hmm.
Boo.
He's great. I
He's
love
very
Minsk.
stupid. He can only be he's very much if you he's added at the last minute. He's very big. He's dumb. He's bald.
You kind of have to work for him, but I'd say it's worth it.
Oh, it's totally worth it. Mostly because it's just fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, so let's talk about our actual villains. I forgot the fact that we didn't mention him is
Yeah.
on us.
Important to mention. But
Yeah.
but the Dread 3 number 2 and 3, Orin the Red. Let's start with. Orin is a shapeshifter.
She's a changeling.
She's a changeling. She's also a Balspawn, which are creations of the Lord of Murder, Bal, who is just as pleasant as you would imagine.
He's the god of murder. You could probably tell he's not a very pleasant guy to be around.
Um, Orin looks really cool. First and foremost,
Oh
I
god,
really
her art's
like her
great.
design.
Her design is
Yeah,
great. She's a freak. She's a
she is.
weirdo.
She's violent. She's murderous. She constantly taunts your party by like assuming different forms and then like following you around.
Yep.
She's definitely like she's Little Miss Murder. She's good.
She's the stab.
Like her a lot. And then let's talk about our favorite handsome young man with an easy smile.
Go for it. This one's yours. You have as much time as you want to explain Enver Gortash as I eat this chicken wing, and we're gonna see who
Enver
finishes first.
Enver Gortash is a Balduran politician whose parents sold him to a warlock when he was very young, and he ended up in the servitude of Raphael. Yes, the Raphael we talked about a little bit ago. Eventually, he formed the cult of the Absolute, and he's now using the Illithid mind control to basically gain a hold in Baldur's Gate. He becomes Archduke and then proceeds to kill off all the patriarchs so he doesn't have anybody in his way when he rules. He looks like a 48-year-old emo kid. he is described on several occasions by the narrative as handsome and young, and
Well, I will definitely at least say he doesn't look young.
he's not a young looking guy. I, Gortash looks like he eats cigarettes. So it's really funny. It's like did he write the narration? Because that seems like something he would do.
I do. He is a classic evil politician. Now, unlike Orin, who is crazy and will stab somebody, he's much more.
He's cunning. He's cunning. He's a chess master. He's got, his hands in many pies, and he's manipulating things from behind the scene. He has very good PR.
Yeah, no,
He's the smart one.
he's the smart one of the Dread Three, of the Chosen, of the Absolute, who are secretly trying to control this nether brain, but actually probably not, because the nether brain's outthinking them, because it's a giant brain.
And them as a trifecta is so funny too, because you have Orin who just wants to murder people. You have Gortash who has got his schemes and his grand designs, and then you have Ketherick who's like, I miss my wife, Tails.
I miss my wife, Tails. I miss her a lot.
So it's like they're kind of a weird match, and I think their biggest downfall is their lack of teamwork.
They have no chemistry with each other. None.
It's giving very like assigned together for a group project. But yeah, so a lot of your stuff at the end, you deal with Orin, you deal with the cult of Baal, um, and you handle all that. She gets a pretty cool boss fight.
In her own
And
little lair, which she brings you in because she kidnapped one of your party members, probably.
yep, I actually managed to avoid that somehow. I got lucky. I
Mine
don't
was
know what
Lae'zel,
happened.
which was so much funny when you can actually
Oh wait,
free.
wait, no, I didn't. It was Lae'zel also.
What's so great about it is you can free them, so now you have 5 people involved. One of the rare times where you get 5 people here.
And it's like, why would you kidnap Lae'zel?
She's
That's the
gonna stab
worst
you
choice.
back. You'll stab her, and then somehow she'll spit a knife out at you.
But yeah, so you rescue your party member and you get them back.
So I think,
And
as villains, they're fine.
I don't feel like in terms of like, their influence on the story, it's like it makes sense, but I my biggest gripe is that Orin doesn't really feel like she gets to do much. Like
I think
she's a fine character. It's just
the problem really is, like, especially when compared to Ketherick, because Ketherick has this whole all of Act Two to himself,
yes.
and it's so well done because you learn about his past. You sort of learn that, like, oh, he used to be like a follower of Selûne, and then he got corrupted after the death of his wife, and it led to all this stuff. Then he betrayed even Shar, and so both of them don't like him. And
And he
and you get to meet his daughter. You meet his daughter-in-law.
And yeah, he gets like a lot of build up.
He gets a really
And
fun introduction.
oh, his introduction is so badass.
He gets an introduction because he's unkillable
Mhm.
unless you have used the Power of the Night song. And so this one, like, goblin who failed tries to kill him. He's like, try again.
Yeah, because they stab him. They stab him through the torso, and he yanks it out of his chest, and he's like, "Try again." And so they hit him in the face, and and then he kills them with his bare hands, which is really, it's yeah.
It's neat.
But yeah, Ketherick gets a little more build up, whereas Orin, it's kind of sudden.
Like, the
And
problem with both her and Gortash have is that they have to share Act 3.
Mm-hmm. And this is Gortash's show. Let's be real.
Mm-hmm. Because Gortash is actually willing to make a deal with you, he gets a lot
Mm-hmm.
more screen time to talk to without being like a creeper.
Yeah.
Because he's smart enough to go like, this. Your party just murdered Ketherick.
Mm-hmm.
And Ketherick is like an actual badass. He's
Yeah.
unkillable. Which means you found a way to kill somebody. That he isn't
And
supposed to, that you're not supposed to be able to kill.
and Gortash realizes that he is on the verge of making a very dangerous enemy in you.
Basically, what makes him interesting is that he doesn't care much for Ketherick or Orin, but I feel like if Orin died first, he would, like, things would have gone very differently.
Yes.
Because, like, Ketherick is willing to play ball, Orin is not, Gortash absolutely does play ball.
Mm-hmm.
How well is depending on who you ask, but, you know, he does play ball.
Yeah.
Not the god ball. It's different. Literal ball.
Yeah. But
though I doubt he can shoot hoops.
yeah, probably not. But
So
yeah, so but that's kind of generally like the big three that you're dealing with. Orin has like a lot to her story, and especially if you choose to play the Dark Urge character subtype, that's also we haven't discussed that. I don't know if we will, but that's also an option for your creatable character.
Enough about it that the Dark Urge is sort of like, I would say, the canon version of Tav.
Mm-hmm.
In a sense, because that's the one most tied to the plot.
Yes.
There's a lot to do with Orin and the ball and Avarok, who is a whole different who is a villain from 2.
Who's Orin's grandpa and
which is
also her dad, which is horrible.
It's horrible, but also doesn't look anything like him. Like, at all.
Well, she is a shapeshifter.
I know, but even still. I'm wondering who's the real daddy here.
Well, obviously it's Masaru Sarah.
That's a joke for us. That's a joke for us.
So I guess that kind of wraps up the story in general. So what's our next topic here?
I feel like now this is the time to really go into our party and talk about these characters in a proper way. So who do you want to start with? I'll let you pick who are we starting with companion wise.
Karlach.
Yeah,
let's talk about her.
Let's talk about Karlach first. Back onto the complaint train a little bit. It's a complaint train a little bit.
And I feel like we can talk about kind of our gripes with how the characters were handled as well.
First, I think I should ask the important question of Sardo.
Yes.
Do you like Karlach?
Duh.
Karlach
does a bear shit in the woods?
Sometimes. Sometimes they don't shit in the woods. Sometimes they shit in
I
the
love
meadow.
her. I love her so much.
I love Karlach. So Karlach, I think, is one of your companions, obviously. She used to be a champion of the Archdevil Zariel.
Zariel.
Okay, so I should mention, it's like, wow, what level does she come at? She comes in as, like, whatever level the party's at. Yeah. Which is probably going to be either levels 1 through 4. And you're wondering, like, wow, that's low level. Understand 5E is, like, you've already done adventuring when you start the adventure. That's how it works. You're not starting as some lowly peasant who's just decided to take up a sword and go do fun things. I mean, you could be, but yeah.
Yeah, but Karlach she's a big peppy sweetheart who is really trying to put on a brave face in spite of what she's dealing with. Which is a lot.
A lot. She was basically sold to Zariel to fight in the Blood Wars by Gortash.
Because she used to work for Gortash.
And does he make her so mad?
Yep.
She
She
is
hates him.
she is incredibly kind, sweet. Like for example, one of the reasons that most likely got you to run into Karlak is Wyll was told to go take her out because he was told that she was a devil,
Hmm.
which she's not,
She's a tiefling.
and Will's like, this doesn't add up. And she forgives him. Why? Because she understands that he was tricked. And that really
Hmm.
tells you a lot about Karlak, that she's, a lot more easygoing, very nice, sweetheart.
She has a very good heart and she cares about people.
Well, except for
And
the fact that her actual heart is basically a hell engine.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Huh.
whoops. It's going to kill her, and even though you do her character quest, it kind of can't be fixed. At least not not on our plane of existence. But she really does not want to go back to Avernus because she spent the past 10 years there, and she don't want to go back.
Because it's literally hell and she was like forced to fight demons there and it was just awful.
She didn't like it. She's a massive sweetheart. I love her. She is my wife. She's very large. And honestly, very sweet.
And she's very puppy-like. I think she has one of my favorite lines when you have to tell her to like wait at camp for you. She's like, I guess I'll just be here eating dirt or something. When you're standing still for a little bit and she's in your party, she'll start like dancing in place. She's very lovable.
Mm-hmm. But
And
her
I
character
feel like
quest
she
just kind of stops.
it does. She really gets shafted by the narrative and you don't feel like you get a lot of options with her.
Like the problem is, if you don't tune up her heart twice,
Hmm.
she'll that's just kind of it.
Yeah.
I would say Karlak. The biggest problem with Karlak, and Wyll also suffers from this.
We should
Because
talk about him next.
yeah, we should talk about both of them first because get their problems out of the way. It's just that like Karlak, who's very fun,
Hmm.
her character quest basically ends if you take out Gortash, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like that's the end of it. Like it up until recently, there wasn't even like a hope that she'll survive. Like they added in new endings for her because people got very annoyed at the lack of endings.
Which is fair.
Well, because it's like everyone else kind of gets like their ending and like sort of some form of closure, and she's like, "Well, her heart explodes. The end."
Yeah, and it sucks.
And it felt very like it. She was one of the two characters really shafted by Act 3 being sort of just where everything wraps up.
Hmm.
It was her and Wyll specifically, because like every other like a lot of like everyone else's stuff kind of wraps up over time, and hers is just like, well, you take out Gortash and it doesn't fix anything.
That's it. You're still fucked.
Which the scene for that is fantastic, but it feels like there should have been like another scene or two
There
afterwards, and you get like a
there should have been more.
there should have been more for her, and it's not because the stuff we get is bad. It just feels like, oh, that's it, we're done.
Yeah, there just wasn't enough.
There needs to be like two more scenes after where
Hmm.
it ends, where it's like, if we can't, because like one of her new character endings that they added in post launch was giving her the chance to go back to Avernus with if you romance her with her. I think also if you like wanted to in general, you could also go back. I
Hmm.
think. And the other example was and potentially with Wyll as well, being the best trio of guys being dudes, despite the fact that two of you could be women.
Yeah.
But it's like, I felt like that scene should not have happened after you beat the Netherbrain, like right afterwards.
Yeah.
And that it feels like, hey, maybe we can go to Avernus together and like fix the problem and then come back. Should have been an option sooner than it was. Because like her character quest is kind of, and this is the problem with Act 3, like things sometimes just stop.
It's very abrupt.
And then, which leads into Wyll, who has less of a problem with this, but his other issues.
I I think
You go. Just say what you need to say.
Wyll got done so dirty by the writers. Like he got done so dirty in the amount that he's given, and so I want to talk about Wyll's story in general because uh, a lot of Wyll's character arc is so his father is Duke Ravengard, and after Wyll made a pact with a devil to like basically become a hero and save people, his father found out and he disowned Wyll. And eventually you realize that Duke Ravengard has been captured by the Absolute. They've put a mind flayer parasite in him to control him, and you've got to go save Wyll's dad. Okay, so you save Wyll's dad, and basically like and the thing is that Wyll's patron Mizora turns up, and she's like, I'll give you two options. Either I can free Wyll from his contract so he doesn't have to suffer under me anymore, or I can tell you where his father is located. And if I chose to free Wyll, because of course I did. And so the whole party basically gives Wyll shit. It's like, wow, way to not choose your dad, Wyll. Even though like and basically the whole thing is like Wyll forgives his dad, and it's like things are gonna be fine, and it's like that's it. That's all he gets.
I will say the scene
Like
with his
there's no
dad where he learns the truth and he's like, "Wow, Wyll, I'm really sorry."
but that's it. It's like there's no catharsis for Wyll. There's nothing beyond like now I can be a good son again. It's like fuck, really? That's it?
I think the biggest problem that Wyll gets is the same issue Karlach has, which is they are the characters that I feel like benefit the most from being played by the player.
Yes.
And so stuff happens at interesting times, but
And
as party members they get kind of shafted by the writing kind of having to have a stopping point.
and I'm going to say it flat out. I think definitely Wyll being the one black character in the party, it doesn't surprise me that he got like the least amount in in terms of his story or his romance or anything like that. It does not surprise me at all that he's gotten shafted by such a major part of the fandom. It sucks. It really
I
sucks.
will say, like, he definitely feels like one of the two characters alongside Karlach who got really screwed over by Act 3 being filled with a lot of cut content.
Hmm.
Because, like,
And
it feels like, because you were supposed to go to the upper city of Baldur's Gate, and you never do until, like,
yeah,
the very end of the game. And it feels like there was probably a lot of stuff to do up there, especially for Wyll.
yes, because that's where Wyll is from.
Yeah, that's like where Wyll grew up as, the bastard son of Duke Ravengard. And there's a really funny joke that Wyll states that yes, it is spelled with a Y. Yes, my father is terrible at spelling.
Yes.
And it's not
But
that like Will's we want to mention it's the writing for Wyll is actually good.
it's very good.
It's just that Wyll is kind of one of the two characters alongside Karlach who just kind of got really screwed over by cut content, by everything after the fact type of deals.
I want to put it this way. And this is no hate towards Astarion or anybody who likes him because I like Astarion, but I think that Astarion could have given up like 3 or 4 of his story beats so Wyll could have a little more time.
Yeah, it's just like in terms of like which characters got more rub, I would say is a much better way to put it. Because it's not more love, it's like who got more time. It
Hmm.
should have, like, Astarion gets a lot, and deservedly so. He's great. We like him. It's just
He's
that
a wonderful character, but I think he gets too much.
it's not even that he gets too much, it's just that he gets
No.
way more than certain characters, and it feels kind of frustrating. Like, if everyone got the same amount as Astarion, then we wouldn't even complain. We would actually be like, no, this is great.
Well, that's the thing. It's like he gets a lot of focus where I think others suffer for it.
Exactly. And we just want to bring that up because while we like every character, it feels like it's an interesting complaint. Because we like Wyll. We like his personality, we love his design. He looks cool. It's great to have a black fantasy character and he feels
Well,
just so belonging
he
and
actually has
interesting.
he actually has one of my favorite romance scenes where he teaches your character how to dance,
Oh no,
and
no, the
it's
best part about it is when you fuck those up. And
well,
don't tell us to
yes,
check because those are hilarious.
but I really liked that scene, and I just wish we'd gotten more of him.
Yeah, it's just it feels like if you didn't romance him, you miss out on like half of his content when that should
Hmm.
have been missing out on like a third.
Yeah.
And speaking of Astarion, we might as well just go with him next. Astarion's fun. I
Like him.
like his scenes because we want to. I want to bring him up next to kind of give you an idea of like if you got all of what you were supposed to get, how great it is.
Yeah. Because
Because
he's very well fleshed out.
he is a vampire who is running away from
His
his
his his lord, his sire, the guy who made him into a vampire, Cazador.
who is just a massive asshole.
Cazador is just unspeakably evil. And there's probably going to be just as a warning for folks, there's probably going to be some discussion of sexual assault because
And
it's
abuse.
yeah, and all the ways that somebody can treat somebody else horribly because it's implied that Cazador did every awful thing you can imagine to Astarion and the other people he turned into vampire spawn.
And we should also mention because it's funny is that he gets all this build up and then you meet him and he sounds like that. You're like,
He's got kind of a well, I think though I'm gonna say this about Cazador
mm,
is I like that he wasn't this like super intimidating looking. I like that he was kind of a wimpy looking dude because I think it's an interesting statement on people who abuse and how
oh
they
yeah.
can look very unthreatening. And like some of the worst people I've ever known in my life have been completely harmless looking.
Oh, it's not really that
So,
he looks like that. It's just it sounds like that because you hear his voice. You're like he's like ha 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 ha, and I'm like, not what I was expecting. I thought he was gonna be more like.
yeah.
I also thought he was
But
gonna look a lot older than he did. Admittedly, that was
well,
part of it.
he is a
I
vampire.
know he's a vampire, but I thought he was gonna look like he feels like he's in his mid 30s. Instead, I thought he was gonna be like his mid 50s.
Mm.
You know, I didn't know because they don't describe what he looks like. So when you finally run into him and he's like not what you expect, you're like, ah, okay, fair enough.
But Astarion's story is really well done, and I think, as you said, it's an example of if every character got that level of screen time and focus and attention to detail, then this is what it could be. Because his story plays out wonderfully. He is very well written, and he's not everybody's cup of tea. I'll say that he's snarky and mean and he's kind of stupid, honestly.
Well, what I like about
He's
him is that when you meet him, like Astarion tries like attempts to like kill you because he has no idea what's going on and he needs to feed, etc., etc. But what I like about him is that Astarion, if you like redeem him,
Mm-hmm.
he actually becomes like he becomes one of my favorite characters because of that. Because he goes from being like this very hurt, very mad person, but he's given the option to become an ascended vampire or not. And if you talk him out of it, and done the right things to talk him out of it, he's like, "You're right. I don't have to do this. I can do the right thing
And
for once in my life."
it's the whole cycle of abuse thing where he can choose not to become the person who hurt him. Uh, I,
And also,
I'll be real.
also
Sorry.
before that, also shout out to Neil Newbon and the rest of the voice cast. They did great.
Oh my God, everybody here is so good with it. Like excellent voices, but
Yeah, especially
Astarion,
Neil.
I have very strong feelings about him because I I relate to him quite a bit. I like to joke that he just like me for real, but I really do like I don't know. There's a lot with him that I like. Yeah, I understand that. So, um, shout out to the writers and to Mr. Newbon, Newbon,
I don't really know how it's pronounced.
Neil. Shout out to Neil.
To our good buddy Neil, who based
Yeah, our
this performance after a feral cat that he knows.
he really did.
That's true. That's not a joke. He actually based this performance after a feral cat that he met and is friends with.
But really excellently done character. You know, maybe he's your cup of tea, maybe he's not, but he's great.
And I think a good time is to move on to Gale of Waterdeep. Speaking of people who have
Yay.
been abused, but in different ways, Mr. of Waterdeep.
Fuck Mistra. All my homies hate Mistra.
Yeah. Gale Decarios, actual last name, or Gale of Waterdeep, is a wizard who basically. His whole character arc is basically. Does he learn from his mistake?
And basically getting out of an abusive relationship with a god.
That too. That's also part of it. Oh, and at the start of Act 2, when you're visited by Elmister, the wizard. And it's like, he basically flips in telling you, she told you to go kill yourself, and then leaves.
Mister says you need to blow yourself up, Gale. I love Karlak too, because after Elminster leaves, she's like, oh, was that Gale's granddad?
Reason why Karlak is best girl, part 1 through 479.
But Gale is he is a fascinating character because I'll admit I was a little mean to Gale when I first started playing this game. Cuz he's a little bit awkward. He's very like how to describe Gale? Stross,
He's a
how would you
nerd.
describe Gale?
He's
He's
a
a nerd.
massive
He's a total
nerd.
nerd. And he's very verbose. I as much as I loved Gale, there were times where I felt myself kind of like fast forwarding through his spoken parts because it's like, okay, Gale, okay, I get it. Um, eh, and he's very like determined to prove he's the smartest person in the room at any second, and that's because he's trying to kind of prove that he's needed,
Mm-hmm.
and hence the whole thing with the orb in his chest comes up. It's like, I need to blow myself up because that's the only way I know, like, A, I'm not going to hurt people, and B, I'm actually doing something good with my life. And it's like,
I think what makes this part interesting with Gale is that he comes off as a bit of a smart aleck. He's a bit of a
oh yeah,
know-it-all. But
bit pretentious.
Yeah, definitely a bit pretentious. I mean, he's a wizard.
It's part of the job.
Yeah, it's just he's one of those characters who, if you actually bother with all of his stuff, you start to learn that, like, oh, you just need to just. I like how his story ends in the good way, where he gives, because the way that the Dread 3 are using the Netherbrain, supposedly, is via the Crown of Karsus, a powerful and dangerous artifact created by a man, I believe it's an elf named Corsus,
Mm-hmm.
who, in all intents and purposes, is a dangerous magical artifact that could basically make someone become a god. And he is tasked, if he doesn't blow himself up, because if he does, he kills you and everyone.
Yeah.
In like a 5-mile radius. But basically, he goes. What happens is, and I think you would agree with me, Sardo, when I say it. If he doesn't kill himself, Mr. basically tasks him like, get the crown back, hand it back over, and I'll get rid of the orb. And he's given the option of saying, fuck you, Mr., or like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have this thing. And it's probably good that he doesn't have it. I think that's fair.
It's a very good thing that he doesn't have it, and I romanced Gale for my run of things.
Which I should mention, I did not expect you to do that.
Who did you think I was going to?
I thought you were probably going to either end up with Lae'zel
Mm-hmm.
or Asterion.
Can I say I'm full of surprises?
Yeah. No. I mean, especially because of like how your early reactions to Gale were. Gale winning out in the end is a surprise. A pleasant one.
But Gale is a very interesting character arc and you see him deal with Mystra directly, and Mystra sucks. I mean, she's well written and everything, but Mystra sucks.
Mystra is definitely like a dick.
It's makes a good case for why mortals shouldn't try to romance gods, because it's definitely the thing of like, well, you're immortal. You're gonna deal with, whatever you have to deal with. You can die. You're gonna die anyway, so just go blow yourself up. Go do it.
You got that, Zeus? You hear that?
Zeus isn't gonna listen.
Oh, I know. But he's gonna transform into Swan and fuck us both. Actually,
but Gale is
what I like about Gale is that he is a wizard who has to learn to be humble.
Mm-hmm. And you realize that
is a dick.
And you realize that under that bravado and under that pretentiousness is a lot of self-esteem issues.
Which is what you love. You
also,
love a soggy man.
I have to say this because I romanced him.
Yes.
Gale's a fucking freak. So I did the thing, because there is a brothel in this game that you can go to. It is called Sharessa's Caress, and there are a pair of drow twins in the brothel that you can hire for their services, and if you are romancing somebody, you can involve your partner as well. And so sorry. What Gale does, because Gale is very nervous, and Gale throughout the game has shown some. May I ramble about this? I apologize.
No, I'm gonna let you have this. This is your time.
Gale has shown some reticence towards intimacy. Maybe it's a side effect of like, bad memories of Mystra, but a lot of the time. You're not actually fucking Gale. You're fucking a magical copy of himself that he has created, because he is very nervous about intimacy. And Gale, in this event with the drow, he makes a copy of himself to engage in the festivities, and then the real Gale sits in the corner watching. And it's implied that he's into it.
Oh god! Oh no! Oh, he has the cock chair.
No. Is it cuckolding if you're participating? If a clone of yourself is...
I don't know. Okay, that
cock chair is for Gale.
Oh no!
So I wish I could have recorded like when I was playing that bit and that scene came up, because the sound I made was ungodly.
I should mention, because I romanced Karlach, because Well, yes.
Of course you did.
Of course I did. Her romance is all about wanting to touch you. She's like, she desperately is down, but can't because she literally runs too hot. And when she
She's
finally doesn't run hot enough, oh god, do you guys go at it? And that's the first time. The second time on your date, well, let's just say it led to one of the funniest posts on Twitter.
uh-huh.
Uh, aka least submissive drow male.
Oh, yes.
It's like, why am I getting pegged? I don't think you know what a drow is. I don't think you know how drow society works.
Yeah, that's I've seen like some of her romance cutscenes and everything, and yeah, uh,
Oh, they are incredibly romantic. Incredibly romantic. And no cuck chair.
no, no, because the cuck chair is for Gale.
Oh
That's his
god.
chair.
Oh lord. But yeah, Gale, I like Gale. He was my main wizard, obviously, because he is much like wizards in D&D. After a certain point, they just blast things.
Yeah.
Unlike the warlock Wyll. Actually, I think it's funny that every male character you get outside of Minsk is a spell, basically a very squishy.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that's funny.
It is very funny.
Okay, okay, we would be on Gale forever, but we have to talk about your favorite lady. We have to talk about
Lae'zel.
Lae'zel.
I love Lae'zel.
Exactly, that's what she's your favorite lady.
She's so fun. I also did my character did didn't romance her but knew her carnally.
Yeah, okay,
And
so
that
that's
is
actually really interesting because Gith don't do the
it,
sexy time to procreate.
nope, they just do it for fun.
They they lay eggs.
Yeah. So you can't get her pregnant. Congratulations.
You're gonna have to give birth. Your children with her will be egg. I offer you
But
this egg in these trying times.
but I just get a kick out of her because I everybody is so goddamn averse to a mean lady character. And I just think she's wonderful.
I think
I
actually, I don't even think she's really all that mean.
she's really not.
I always
Like,
considered, um, I consider Lae'zel to be just very. She's very much a fish out of water because she is a Gith. She's from a she's a proud warrior race type of gal who has to face a trial of faith when she starts to realize that Blacketh is full of shit.
because the people that the leader
Of the
kind of god
Githyanki.
figure of the Githyanki is Vlaakith, who, Lae'zel has sworn her loyalty to and all this. And we find out later that Vlaakith is basically a usurper and she's not the real deal. And the real deal is Orpheus, and Orpheus is contained in a trouble bubble, and you have to rescue him.
Trouble bubble. Very different kind of trouble bubble. But basically, what happens is, in a bit more detail, is that what you start realizing is that Blacketh isn't a god. She's
Mhm.
just a very powerful lich.
She's a great big phony.
And that over time, you start realizing with all the things that are happening, Lae'zel starts to realize that Blacketh is full of shit. She's not the woman I thought she's not the leader I thought she was. She's no god. She's a just mean.
We've been had, folks.
Yeah. She's just mean. And you learn from a man named Githyanki named Kethric Voss that actually the last son of Gith, the actual heir to the throne, Orpheus, is missing. And we're going to talk about why in a bit because there's a lot of stuff going on here. But
Yeah, you find him eventually.
Kithric Voss
But
is basically like, "Hey, I'll help you. We know that the real man in charge of all of this, Orpheus,
Hmm.
he's alive.
He is.
And we can save him. And if you save him, we will free the Gith from Vlaakith's undead clutches for the last time. And it's neat. And if you do all the stuff to, like, basically... Because, basically, after... Because Lae'zel learns that, like, what's ever going on in the spirit core, that's the mysterious trouble bubble that we're talking about. And if you fail, and, like, oh, all of you need to... She's like, all of you have to die now. Goodbye. And you're like, no, that's stupid, because if we kill the thing inside there, we die. And, you know. She's like, oh, you're petty. Also, you know she's not a god because she uses wish as a spell.
Yep.
Gods don't need wish. They can just smite you.
Yeah, everything they do is wish.
Yeah.
But I really like Lae'zel's character arc, and I don't think it gets enough credit for, like, her realizing her whole system of belief was wrong and that she was lied to. Like, the whole thing she's been kind of basing her principles on. And it takes a lot for her to admit that she's wrong, and you see her do it, and it's very admirable. And she's cool. And also she has to deal with, like, Shadowheart in the beginning is like, ew, I don't trust that you have a Gith with you. and Lae'zel's like, God, you dumb bitch. They don't like each other very much.
At the start.
I kind of ship them, honestly.
You wouldn't be the first. I ship all
Oh,
the
I know
girls
I'm not.
together. All the girls get
Yeah.
to go together as one big, weird, gay thing. Well, what's great about it, about that whole thing, is that her character arc mirrors Shadowheart's. Near perfectly, actually. So we might as well talk about the Shard.
Yes.
And yes, people do call her that. Because Shadowheart is... The whole thing is dealing with her own crisis of faith. Because her memories have been tweaked by her mother superior so that she doesn't realize that her parents are alive the entire time. She was never abandoned. Except for this weird ritual Selûne people do that's really weird.
But that's less bad parenting and more like just it's the religious thing they do.
It's a weird religious
still...
thing that they do that no one's really sure why they did it. It's like,
no.
Selûne, this is a really dumb idea. She was basically kidnapped as a child. And, yeah. And her whole thing is basically... Because the thing is, Shar is not a good goddess.
No, Shar is the goddess of darkness and pain and... Well, not pain directly. That's a
different goddess domain.
Yeah. Yeah. But she's the goddess of bad frowny things, basically.
Pretty much.
So there's... And also, after Shadowheart realizes that she's been living a lie, she gets a cool hair color change.
Well, she can change her haircut either way. Mm-hmm. And then she also changes her hair color to either, if you make her do the bad thing, it stays dark and black. But if you do the good thing, she dyes it basically gray. Like the moon. Mm-hmm.
I like white-haired Shadowheart. I think it's
Shadowheart
pretty.
the white. It's like Gandalf, but hotter. Which is impressive, because Surian McKellen is a looker.
Oh, yes.
Hello.
But and her thing too is that she starts out very prickly and very secretive and just like, I don't want to talk to you.
I don't want to talk about it. No.
Now let's talk about her feelings. Shadowheart, you go first. No. I want to talk about my feelings. I know, Gale. I'm sad. I know, Gale.
And what's great about her is that you learn very early on that basically what you start learning that she's basically been messed with her entire life.
Mhm. She's been abducted by a cult
Mm-hmm.
and brainwashed.
Also, she's kinky.
She is. She's
Very.
very kinky.
And, good for her. She's fun. She's my second favorite girl.
She's a good girl.
She's a good girl. Her real name is so funny, though.
What? I forget what her real name is.
Genevieve Hollowleaf.
Aww.
Oh, you have such an
Aww.
elf name.
Aww. Dart.
Also, she's the source of the phrase climbing Mount Halcyon. Which is great.
She's got some banger lines.
She does. Including one of my favorites is when you enter the Temple of Baal.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, pleasure domes.
Also, one of the smaller ones I'm very fond of. Wyll with a Y. Hi.
No, actually, she and Lae'zel are probably one of my favorite banter bits between her, Lae'zel, and Wyll, where Wyll hits on Lae'zel and then hits on Shadowheart, and Shadowheart's like, I just saw you struck out with Lae'zel. Nice try, jackass.
Apparently they removed that bit, and that makes me very sad.
Oh, that bit was so funny, though. Because, like, it's only funny because, like, Lae'zel would not understand human flirting anyways.
No.
So that's why she like, the whole thing is she doesn't get it, and Will's trying his best. And then, like, Lae'zel, and then Shadowheart's like, nice try, Wyll. I'm not gonna be your rebound. And which is so funny, because it says, like, oh, Will's fun, he's gonna hit on ladies, because he's cool like that.
Yeah.
Because he got game. And it's not that his game is bad, it's just that he tried it on Lae'zel.
Bless his little heart.
I'm mad that that's gone. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
That, or it's this got buried underneath, like, 5 other things, and it's just a lot rarer to get. Which is also a possibility. That's the problem with these games when it comes to party banter, is that there's so much of it.
It's very dense.
And it's also because of the way party banter is activated. It activates randomly on the map. So you kind of just gotta hope that you're actually with the characters while it activates, because I had a tendency to be like, I need you to go here, farther, 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 and you don't hear them talk about things.
Mm-hmm.
That happened to me a lot. That's...
Yeah.
I guess let's talk about a bit about Halcyon. He's fun. He's large.
Big.
He's very big.
Him big. The thing about Halcyon is
Come on, you can say
it. In the scene where your character is getting down and doing the nasty with him, you have a choice. Halcyon gives you the option of doing it in his regular form or in his bear form.
And go on, you want to.
I'm just saying that's the.
Did you do it with the bear?
I haven't romanced Halcyon yet. I'm not sure if I'm going to do it with the bear. Well, knowing as, because this is Dark Urge, as that I'm romancing him here, he's probably going to do the bear. Anyway,
Chihira is basically Team Mom. You get her in Act 2. At the end of Act 2, she's a cool older lady. We would say more about her, but she has her own games. Same with Mint.
She does. She's already gotten her time to shine.
Yeah. This is a veteran one. She's been through a bunch of shit. She's got a bunch of orphan kids that she's only kind of an okay mom towards.
She's very much that mom that sits out in front of the trailer and smokes cigarettes while her kids are like eating dirt in the front yard.
She's fun. She's a druid. Minsk, also fun. He's very stupid. He's great. And Minthara, I don't think any of us had a lot to do with Minthara yet. But she's
No,
neat.
I
Everything I've seen of her, she's neat. I'm
yeah,
glad that there's an
I
evil party member who's absolutely, like, evil, not just a dick.
she's kind of a freak, from what I've seen,
Well,
and
I
I
mean,
like that about her.
of course she's a freak.
Yeah,
She's a drow of noble stock.
she's also a severe hottie,
I mean, they're
and
all
I'm
severe. No one we mention is below like a 9.
no, everybody like 10 out of 10 all around.
I mean, I would
Everybody
say
is
the least attractive party member is what? Actually, I have to think about this. I guess Minsk. I guess. And not because he's unattractive, just because he's the most normal looking.
like you've got a party of solid 10s
Yeah,
front to back.
and not only that, but they're all different kinds of 10s. Like, come on.
Yeah. You've got something for everybody.
You got the dandy and dangerous Astarion. You got the bookish Gale. You got the big buff Mama Karlak, or Mama K as she calls herself. Yes, this is a line that she says. That's not me making that up. That's not a fandom thing. That's what she said.
You've got your beautiful goth girl.
You got your beautiful
Shadowheart.
gothy Shadowheart. You got your beautiful bitey, sharp-eyed Lae'zel. You have probably the most conventionally attractive male, Wyll.
Will's very handsome.
He's very handsome. I say conventionally attractive because, like, it's him or Gale. Because Astarion looks too weird.
Astarion will always remind me of one of those crusty little white dogs.
He's a Bichon Fusé.
And, like, I think Wyll, the only thing that makes Wyll unconventional is when he gets turned into, like, kind of a tiefling. He gets horns.
He gets transformed into a fiend if he doesn't kill Karlak.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah.
Which only makes him hotter, honestly.
Honestly, the horns add to his look. And also because it changes his normal human eye into a really sick, like, devil eye.
Yeah.
But he still has the stone eye, which is neat.
So, joke's on Mizora, she just made him even hotter.
Also, speaking of a severe hottie, Mizora.
Mizora, who is mean and awful, and the only reason I don't like her is because she makes Wyll sad.
Yeah.
But
other
than that, she's a smoke show.
Yeah. You have Chihiro, a hot, older woman.
Mm-hmm. I love her very much.
You have Minthara, angry, hot lady.
Mm-hmm.
Drow, so if you're into that. If you know what a drow is, you know what I mean when I said that.
Yes.
And then there's Minsk, who is large, with his miniature giant space hamster Boo.
And Minsk and Boo are great. It was great to see them back.
Yeah, it's great. Now, I think this is the section where, remember when Stross mentioned that he's going to start comparing this game to a different one? It is time.
Well, fire away.
It's time for us to start complaining about things in our, I guess, last 30 minutes or so? Maybe? I don't know. We've been going for a while, but this game's very big. We have not talked about everything. And we probably won't, because we don't have enough time. It'd be like four 2-hour episodes, and we're already doing that for 2 other things. We can't make a third.
Yes.
That would just be absurdly unreasonable. But, as much as I like every party member diversity is really low.
Like, it is.
Like, and I don't just mean, like, there's only one black dude in the party. I mean in the sense that, like, even by playable races, there are just certain, like, core normal ones that aren't even here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are the playable races that we get access to?
It's human, halfling, gnome, or no, not halfling. I think human, gnome.
There.
Yeah, human, halfling, gnome, dwarf, elf, half elf, tiefling,
a Gith,
half orc,
and dragonborn.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, there are races and sub-races to that.
Mm-hmm.
But your options are in your party, you get an elf, you get a different elf, you get a drow, which is just another different kind of elf. You get a human.
You get 2 humans.
You get you get 3 humans.
3 humans.
Because you have to remember Minsk is also there.
That's true. 3 human.
You get 2 different half elves. Basically, the only amount of spice on this list, in terms of anything other than just some form of elf or human, which in fantasy terms, elf is just human with pointy ear features, usually just the ears.
Human but sharp.
Human but pointier. And that's Lae'zel and Karlach. And even then, that's not that interesting.
And I mean, Karlach I will give some credit to in that she at least, like, looks a little more like, she's a huge red lady who has, like, spikes all over her skin, and she has big horns, and, like, she's got, like, the burning chest.
She's got scars. But, like, I'm not talking about in terms of looks. I'm talking about, like, the most interesting thing you get is a Gith, which is very interesting, by the way, because Gith is not normal.
But it's still, like, a pretty vanilla party in terms of just, like...
extremely vanilla party, if you ask me. Because this is where the second comparison to Wrath of the Righteous happens. In Wrath of the Righteous, you get a human and like a half elf for your first 2 party members, and then you get a fucking half lizard, half goat, half man type of guy in Lan.
Mm-hmm.
And also the blue spider lady Wendewog, who actually is in this game.
Huh.
If you remember, I did mention it. Wendewog is played by our beloved narrator.
That's right.
Yeah, our narrator, who is what's her name? Oh dear. Her name is oh god, why am I... Oh geez, do you remember what her name is? I am blanking so hard, and I'm so...
Let me... to Google. Hold on. Narrator. Amelia Tyler.
Amelia Tyler, who is also there, who also was in Alcat's Pathfinder games, which is just kind of hilarious. And she's a blue spider woman is Wendewog.
Mm-hmm.
You also get, like, a tiefling. You get a gnome. You get the world's worst gnome, as you remember.
You get an awful, awful gnome.
With a voice where she talks like this.
He's great. I love him.
Rachel was designed for you.
Yes.
It's like, I have to take you seriously. I do, because I'm a weirdo, but... but it's like... in terms of your, like, party's makeup, it's definitely very...
could have been more.
Yeah, it's just, like, there's no representation for dwarves, or gnomes, or halflings, or half-orcs. Like, most of your... or a different dragonborn, most of your party is just some form of elf or human.
Yeah.
Like, the only... fully non-elf or human character you get is the Githyanki. And as much as I love Lae'zel, she can't carry this all by herself. She needs some help.
It's not fair to expect that of her.
Yeah. She wouldn't want to do it anyways.
Mm-hmm.
She'd go, what the fuck are you doing? And this also leads to the other problem that I have, is also in turn, your, like, party diversity of class is also kind of minimal. Is this me who noticed that?
No, it definitely is.
Like, you get, obviously, like, you get 2 druids, a cleric. Like, a great example of this is Astarion is the only rogue that you get, and the only person who can pick locks.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Gale, wizard, Wyll, warlock. And yes, I know you can just... for a measly 100 gold, which is not a lot by the end of the game, respec everyone, but it's like, how many people actually did that is a
knowing that you have to do it.
knowing that that's the only way to get anything other than this. It's a very spellcaster forward group. You only get 4 frontline fighters, and you
Mm-hmm.
only, at least up until recently, as far as I know, only get 3 of them in one on a good playthrough, and only like one of them on a bad playthrough. Outside of Lae'zel, it's like it's Lae'zel and Minthara one way, or Lae'zel, Karlach, and Minsk,
Yeah.
and it's just like that's kind of all you get. It's not.
It's disappointing.
It's just that, especially once again back to Wrath of the Righteous. Like your first few party members are a paladin, it's a weird new special class called spiritualist class. I'm not going to go into that. A fighter, a monk, and then you also get like a ranger, a very weird subsect of ranger, a cleric, an oracle, and you love that oracle. You love Dayran.
Mhm.
Oh, Dayran would get along so well with Astarion.
Oh yeah.
They would have so many fancy parties. And it's just you just
It
wish the game had better like diversity of class and character races.
like it's not bad, but you wish for more.
Yeah, and that also leads to another problem we both have. It's very annoying that you're only allowed to take so many characters with you.
I hate that. I hate
Okay,
that so much.
because for those who don't understand, um, the biggest problem that we have is that you're only allowed to take 3 other people besides your player character, whoever that may be.
Mm-hmm.
And there are times where you like really should have taken more than one character, but it's not optimal to take all of them at the same time. Like if you're running
Yeah.
with Wyll and Gale and you don't respec them into something that's a bit more sturdy, you're asking for trouble because this game isn't hard, but it isn't easy, especially for newcomers.
It keeps you on your toes.
Like if you're really good at these types of games, you will breeze through it. But if you're new, you're still like you can still get absolutely screwed over by happenstance because it's
Mm-hmm.
D&D. You're gonna hit some bad rolls every so often and get hit by some crits.
It'll happen.
It will happen, and it's just like Wyll. If you take a party of Wyll, Astarion, and Gale, and you are like
You're not
a
a meaty
bard,
class.
yeah, and you're not a meaty class, be ready for things to go south very fast in the wrong kind of fight.
I mean, and bards here can be surprisingly useful, but definitely not a durable class.
There's only the frontline fighters are really durable in 5e because this is as a system, 5e is much more lower numbered than not. Like having a 20 AC in 5th edition is actually pretty high,
Mm-hmm.
which is not the case in other editions / Pathfinder. Also,
Right.
thing that just pissed me the fuck off because I had to deal with this the entire game. Inventory management in this game sucks.
That's the other thing I didn't like. It was kind of a pain getting used to managing that.
Well, it's just like when I was coming off of Wrath of the Righteous, you end up with this it just gives you a party inventory. You can just click which character you want to equip. And what was really frustrating, like it's not that characters have individual inventories. I'm fine with that. It's just that it's super easy to lose an item that you need to have. And you just end up with a lot of clutter because the game doesn't probably tell you when you're done with an item.
Yeah.
Because it's like, "Oh, I need this moon lantern. For how long? I don't know."
It's pretty annoying.
And it's just like, especially because when you have to go back to camp, you got to get like if you need something for Astarion, he's not currently in your party for whatever reason, you have to go back to camp. Got to get his item. You got to first dismiss someone from the party. Then they're gonna have to pout about it, and they're gonna be like, "Yeah, pout about it. I have to hand this knife off to Astarion." And then you talk to Astarion. Got to give him then you have to open his inventory, see if this thing is even worth giving it to him,
Mm-hmm.
and then dismiss him from the party if you're not going to take him. You have to do the whole rigmarole all over again just to give someone a short sword. And it's much worse because, like, I'm not sure if it changed in camp with patch 5, but I know you can now send things directly to specific characters no matter if they're in the party or not, which is nice, but it doesn't really solve the problem of knowing if it's worthwhile or not.
Yeah.
And it's this inventory management in this game is an unnecessary hassle, I think is the best way to put it.
Say so.
But, you know, if our complaints are relatively minor, other than the amount of times it crashed on me, I got very annoyed by that.
Fair.
I had to redo several boss fights because it crashed immediately. The funniest one was when I had to fight Raphael.
Oh, that sucks.
No, it was just funny because, like, I saw the game starting to bug out. I'm like, uh-oh, I should save. And it crashed. But I would say I really like this game, in spite of all that.
I think, you know me. I think it's fair to say I like this game a reasonable, normal amount.
Oh, you can just say it. It ruined our sleep schedules. It invaded our lives.
This game melted my brain.
It did that to everyone who played it. You're not the only one.
That it's the puppet master that cursed my dick. It's so good. It's a great game.
I would say if you really want to try this game, do it.
Yeah.
Just know it's gonna invade. Just know it's gonna invade your mind for like the next 2 months.
It's gonna be it's gonna be all you're doing with your free time.
Yeah, it's gonna eat up. The only thing that really dragged me away from this game, outside of my streaming, which is different, was Armored Core 6, which is also one of my games of the year. So you know,
yes,
nothing beats going around shooting things with large stomping back. Hey, Raphael, try this on for size. Eat 120 millimeter bullets.
I think the way I know this game was a success is that I was not too long ago talking to a coworker about something in the game, and another coworker comes in the middle of it, and he's like, "Are you talking about Baldur's Gate?" I'm like, "Yup." And then we were all talking about it. So
it is shocking how well it did, because like CRPGs have not been popular in years. And there's been some really good ones. Wrath of the Righteous. If you've played Baldur's Gate 3 and want a new one and a new adventure, Baldur's Gate 3, especially if you like a crunchier system. If you want some more number go big, Pathfinder's where it's at.
Yes, indeed.
There's Pillars of Eternities 1 and 2. There's there's Wasteland 1, 2, and 3. There's a bunch of really good games out there. Baldur's Gate 3 is hopefully going to start a new era of fun, well-written CRPGs that people learn the right lessons from. Please learn the right lessons from this game.
Please.
Which is having fun characters and a fun little story and some goofiness and some weirdness. Really
and good voice acting.
Oh yeah,
because like
excellent voice acting, just all around.
But I loved this game so much. It was so good. If you want to go play it, you should.
Yeah. Go have
That's
fun.
all I gotta say on that.
You could do a lot of weird stuff in this game.
The possibilities are maybe not endless, but very close.
You can do a lot of weird stuff in this game, and it lets you do it, and I like that.
I do too.
And let's see, anything else about it that we want to talk about, because we don't want to make this go too long. The fact that this is only 2 hours and 30 minutes so far is a miracle in its own right.
I think that about sums it up for me.
Any other complaints you might have had that I didn't mention?
Yeah, none off the top of my head.
I think they should have given Lae'zel a bigger sword.
I agree. Okay, one more complaint actually. I would have liked Tabaxi.
Yeah, definitely more playable races would be fun. I know that there's mods for it, but like actual legit ones would be nice.
Mm-hmm.
Just because like you got good ones, but they're mostly the core stuff plus the Gith. And let's be fun with it. We don't know what's gonna happen with this game in its near future. We know there's crossplay coming. Yes, there will be a stream of it. The worst boys run.
Yes.
All of them pretty, all of them incredibly feminine. Oh, that's actually something we should probably talk about. Is the character creator.
It's
good.
Wanting for a little more variety.
It's definitely good, but it does leave you wanting.
Yeah.
And we understand why. Because this game's presentation is absurdly good. And you get to see your characters full body doing tasks. And that was a way to cut a corner in a reasonable way. We should mention fully reasonable. But
I would have liked a little bit more, but
it's just that you're only given so many body types, and for some, for half orcs, you only get one,
which sucks.
I can, if you want to make it a chubby guy, you can't make a chubby guy, and that I feel like that's missing out.
Mm-hmm.
And especially because unlike in Wrath of the Righteous, because you just make a tiny model that you don't really see a whole lot of. A lot of it's carried by the art, and even they have a chubby dude with a big old beard. It looks very nice. Or you can play as John Cena, like I did.
That you did.
As I said, we can be anyone. I'm going to be John Cena. One of my favorite moments in my entire stream's history. But
it was pretty great.
It's just that, for as much detail as you're allowed to have, I just wish you had more access. You just wish there was more options. Which,
nice.
If our biggest complaint is we want more, you're doing something right. And I feel like that's a good way to put it. Larian did something right here.
They did.
And it was fun. It was a great adventure. We'll definitely probably play more of it. And, yeah. And if you want to play a very different CRPG, Rogue Trader's coming out next week. 6 days.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Alcat's back, and this time it's Warhammer, which means it's extra. Not money.
All right.
Just in presentation.
Just over the top.
And we love that. Well,
very
folks,
good.
I think that's a good time to ask Sardo a very important question. How you been watching, Sardo? If anything else.
I haven't actually been watching a whole lot. Most of my time's just been spent wrapping up my current run, so not a whole lot of note. I did actually, though. I picked up a book really recently that I thought was interesting. It's called The Glutton. I believe the author is A.K. Blakemore. Pretty sure that's their name. But it is about the historical figure of Terrer. Have you ever heard of Terrer, Stross?
Maybe. Keep going. Tell the people.
Terrer was a Frenchman.
Right, yes, no. Yeah, I realized it's this. Yes, I know what you mean. Of course I know, but
yeah, he was a French showman and soldier born in 1700s France, who was best known for his immense appetite. He could eat incredible volumes of things, and he ate a lot of living things. He is rumored to have eaten a human baby. We don't know if that's true or not. But this was it's a fictionalized account of Terrer's life. But it's actually very interesting, and it's presented in a pretty sympathetic way. And it's beautifully written, and I really like it so far. So, yeah.
I'm gonna be starting Blue-Eyed Samurai because I've been told it's neat.
I need to watch that one. From what I've seen of it, it looks really good.
It looks neat. I just haven't started it yet. I haven't really done much of anything. I did attempt to play the original X-Wing game last night, and let me tell you something.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, howdy, was it made in the mid 90s, because it was so the sound is so compressed, Sardo. It's like It's all MIDI. I'm like, oh, this takes me back.
Yeah.
Back when games used to sound like this. I also picked up Frostpunk finally. I got that for cheap. I mean to play that for
Nice.
like 1,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we most of our time has been eaten up by a certain large game that we just spent 2 hours talking about
Yes.
because it's good.
It is.
Go play it if it sounds good to you. If this is not your type of game, then fair enough.
That's okay. That's all
It's
right
not
too.
for everyone, and that's not a problem. Not everything's meant for
Yeah.
you, and that's good.
Mhm.
We will say, hey, Larian, tell us if there's deals. Tell us when Crossplay's coming. Sarah and I have plans.
We
Horrible
wanna
plans.
play.
We have lots of plans. But in the
We wanna
meantime,
play a
folks,
game.
I'm Stross. That's Sardo. You can follow him at Autopsy Garlands on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
You do art for Marquee Belial for the art account.
Yes.
You're on Blue Sky and Uncle Death with a
Mm-hmm.
K. Also Twitch. You'll be up tonight. Well, maybe we'll draw our tabs. Well, you will. I don't draw anything. No one wants my art.
But you'll be there.
I'll be there, but no one wants my art because it's not good.
Yeah. And I'll be starting a little later in the evening because I have dance practice. I gotta go be drag Bill Nye for a couple hours
That
on
sounds like fun.
today. But I'll be here a little later in the evening and yeah, I can draw some stuff.
That's
So
fun. Get to dance. I'm Almighty
yeah.
Stross on all platforms. I'm going to be streaming on Twitch tomorrow. We're playing Persona 5 Tactica. It's been fun.
And you stream Tuesdays, Thursdays, Sundays.
That is correct. At 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is the same time you start. Just yours is 6:30 for you normally, but not on this Monday, which is going to be a bit later.
Yes.
And if you're listening to this after the fact, then it's back to the normal time.
Yes.
Depending on when you're... Well, time is weird when you're recording yourself, ain't it?
It really is. Time isn't real.
Thing. But
Time
anyway, I think this is us signing off. Thank you for listening. And you can email us at theskeletoncrewpodcast@gmail.com. Do you want to suggest something?
Always open suggestions.
Yeah. We're always open for
Nah.
suggestions, and especially if they're weird. If it's a weird, bad movie, Sarah's absolutely going to want us to watch it.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll be like,
yeah.
yes. We'll do it.
Well, you take care, have a good day, evening, whatever time it is where you're at, and be well, darlings.
And just remember, if you have an infernal engine in your heart, make sure it's working before you return to the normal mortal plane.
Yes.
And make sure you just don't put a weird orb in your chest. It's a bad idea. Got that, Gale? No amount of Tressums are going to save you from this one. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye, everybody.